our hearts align. Dreams and hues so bright, our quilted heart holding me at night. I patch together memories we made.
Hello everybody, welcome to my rearranged studio. I'm Lisa with the Quiltmaker Homestead, Lisa Capen Quilts, and today we are going to be finishing up the Mariner's Compass quilt, Show Me the Way. Now, confession to make, I only have the top made. I'm not going to have time to quilt it for about a week and a half, 2 weeks maybe. But I'm going to walk you through in this video, which I've already recorded. I'm going to hang out with you live if you have questions and show you piecing circle number 5, turning the edges, lining up the chunk we've made all the way up into circle number 4, placing it on a finished circle number 5, and then placing that on the background square and sewing it down. And that should get you well on your way to finishing up this quilt. And I have seen many of your quilts in progress, and I love each and every one of them. Hi everybody. We are live for a little bit, and then I'm going to start the video. So just to let you know, finishing up this quilt, the video is 1 hour and 10 minutes long. So if you can't stay the whole time and you're making this quilt and you have questions, come back on the replay. And on the replay, you can fast forward and skip and pause, rewind and rewatch the parts that you really need to see, right? Many of you already probably can already piece circle number 5 all on your own. But if you like to hang out with somebody while you're doing it, this video will be fantastic. And then when the video's over, I'm going to pop back here. I'm going to show you my finished top. I'll show you my first quilt that I did, and we'll talk about some different quilting ideas, because I think the ideas are unlimited on ways that you could quilt this, and we'll talk about it. Hi everybody. Y'all, I rearranged my room. Look who's here. Dolly is here. Valerie says, I love this project. Thank you, Lisa. Hi, Valerie. Thank you so much. Hi, Catherine and Elaine. Elaine just had her supper. Hi, Kimberly. Steffi, hi. Steffi is sewing circle 5 as this video is playing. That's awesome. Hi, Beverly. Hey, Dawn. So without further ado, I'm going to get this video started, and I will be here in the live chat. If you have questions, we can just hang out there when the video is done. I'm going to pop back here, show you my quilt top. You're going to see it at the end of the recorded part. And if you're on Facebook, you've already seen it. Isn't it so pretty? Hi, Janice and Susan. Anyway, the Mariner's Compass quilt without any curved piecing. What have you thought about it? I've gotten some feedback on Facebook. Some of you absolutely love this idea of the turned edge circles, and a couple were disappointed that the whole thing wasn't paper piecing. I personally like to bring a twist to a lot of my projects where we're not doing the expected route. Do you know what I'm saying? We're gonna flip it up and do something different here. And so that's what we've done with this very traditional type of quilt, and I hope you've had fun. I'm gonna go ahead and start playing the video because it's a longer one. And yeah, if you have questions, let me know, okay? I'll be here in the live chat. To get ready to start filming, right? There's already playing. In this video, we're going to be picking up where we left off after circle 4. So today we're making circle 5, right? Isn't that so pretty? So let's just put that off to the side and let's take a look at the packet for circle number 5. You have your written instructions. I'm going to put those off to the side. you have one page of templates for pre-cutting all of your fabrics. Remember when using these to put your fabric with the right side facing down and the printed side facing up. Each one of these you will cut out on the line. Now, we're cutting lots of pieces for circle number 5. Before we move on, let me just show you what I did. Okay, I pulled out the coloring page. And I know this is not going to make a lot of sense. It looks crazy, right? But let me just get a little pointy tool. Circle 5, we are making 4 sections. And each section starts here and goes over to here. And each section is made up of 2 foundations. Okay, one is longer than the other, and you'll see those here in just a second. But when we piece them together, this is the section here. And if you're like me and you're wondering, you know, it's so confusing to keep track of all of the templates and where am I going to put my fabrics, I went in with colored pencils to give myself some references. And then I took the templates and placed on here where each template goes so that when I'm cutting, I can go through and organize my fabrics, right? And I counted all the ones that I needed. So for my dark purple fabric, I knew that I was going to cut 4 of the H template, right? 4 fabrics using the H template. And I went ahead and I wrote right on here before I even cut it out, dark purple. And then I came over and the G foundation, which is right here, I was going to use the teal fabric. So I need to cut 4 of those for all together of the teal fabric using the G template. And let me just write on here like this, 4. And I go through and I make myself notes. And then I made a list. Now your list will look different because you're going to use different fabrics in different places, right? But I made a list of everything I need to cut. And I took this over to the cutting table and I was able to really quickly go through and cut all of my pieces because I knew exactly what I needed, right? So if you need to, use this page to figure out what fabrics you're going to use and where and which template you use to pre-cut your pieces. Okay, that made it a lot more simple for me. You can also take a look at this, right? So this is one page of your foundations. This and this makes up one piece of circle number 5, right? So you'll cut these out just a little beyond that outside line. Don't cut it out on the outside line directly yet, right? We'll get to that part after all the fabrics have been placed. So of this page, you have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. They all look the same. You'll cut them out, and I'm going to walk through piecing this section and this section with you. I've already made the others off camera to save a whole bunch of time. Okay, I'm excited for you to see them. But in this video, we're going to piece together this piece and move on from there. Okay, so those are your foundations and your templates. And then the last page is what we're going to print on freezer paper if you're doing it like I am. And because we have some size, we're going to have to assemble this section to this section and then make our template for folding over that edge, right? The raw edge. So the very last page, if you're doing it like I am, you'll print on freezer paper, and we'll get to this in a little bit. So what I've done, and maybe this will make a lot more sense to you too. Of course, there's a numerical order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it also tells you which template to use for each of the different positions. But I wanted a fail-safe, And because with my C template, some I did bright purple and some I did a dark purple. So I've gone through and laid them out just like this. And I wrote the colors that I'm using for each one of these positions, which to some might seem like a little bit of extra work. But for me, this helps me like make as less mistakes as possible. And helps me stay organized. So I have all of my fabrics right off to the side, and I like to keep my template with the fabric, right? So I know which piece is which because they kind of all look the same, or a lot of them do, right? So let's knock out the bigger piece first. Let's get that part out of the way, and we're going to start right here. So we're going to take a look at the numerical order. And A1, or 1, uses the A template, right? So here's my fabric for the A, and I'm using bright yellow for mine. We have that, which could use a little press. And 2, we're using the B template. So I'm going to go ahead and get those 2 fabrics. I need to give them a press real quick because see how it's a little wrinkled. It's been crammed up back there. And let me give those a press. Let's turn on the light pad and we're going to start right there. All right, so here is our foundation from the back side. Remember, we're adding our fabrics to the back side. So we're going to start right here in this position. And I'm going to add a little bit of glue stick right within that space. This very first fabric we're placing with the right side facing up. And I want it to just stick over the top of this foundation and be more heavy with the extra towards that bottom curve, okay? So I'm going to place it just like so. I'm going to finger press that fabric right into the glue. And then we're going to go ahead and trim up the extra fabric. Now, see these solid lines right there, those are our sewing lines. And you can see the shadow of that fabric that extends beyond 1/4 inch. So we're going to go ahead and fold over right on those sewing lines and trim this extra fabric, just leaving that 1/4 inch. Now I have to be super careful because I just put a new blade in this cutter. And I've already cut myself one time today since I did that. And I get so used to using a dull blade that when it's new, I usually have to keep a stack of Band-Aids close by. Even though I'm pretty careful about putting the blade back in when I'm not using it, I tend to be a little handsy. And I've already got a little boo-boo from earlier today. All right, so see that extra fabric? There's our 1/4 inch, and that just helps us line up the pieces on both sides, right? So we're gonna start here, and we're gonna go in this direction. So the B fabric, which is this, for me, right? But this is what your piece will look like as in the shape. Now, if you flip it up, I don't have my light pad on as bright as it will go because it just super reacts with the camera. So what I'm going to do is draw this shape with a Sharpie for you so you can see it a little bit better. So there's our shape. See that slant right there? That slant is what we match up that raw edge to. So we have our piece like this with the right side facing up, and we're going to flip it right on over and match up those raw edges just like that. So now we're going to bring this over to the sewing machine. Now each time we sew the seams, when we just do the straight ones, I'm going to do that off camera. But this one is a little bit different, right? We're going to start off the edge here and come to this line right here, and I'm going to do some back stitches and cut the thread. So I thought I would bring you along on these two right here and probably this one right there. Even though that goes from edge to edge, this slant is different than this one. So, but But all these other straight seams, I'll sew them off camera today to speed things up. But let's head on over there. We're going to sew this as our first seam. All right, it's going to look a little awkward for a second because Dolly is right here at my feet in front of the foot pedal, actually. Yesterday, I rearranged my room, and I had been wanting to do this for about 4 or 5 days, maybe a week or so. One of the main reasons, though, was so that I could bring her bed in here with me because she doesn't like to be by herself, right? And so she has enjoyed being in here with me during the day. But does she stay in her bed? No. See her body? She is slowly migrating off the bed and underneath my feet. So it might look a little awkward, but I'm going to be reaching for the sewing machine, right? I've already lowered my stitch length. Let me put on my open toe foot because I meant to do that. Yeah, I'm reaching for that foot pedal and trying not to hit her in the head. So yesterday, I sewed all of the units and got counted all the pieces, cut all the pieces, sewed all the sections to get ready to start filming, right? There's a lot of prep work that goes into getting ready to start filming, at least for me. But anyway, yesterday was all of that. And then around 2:30, 3 o'clock, I was done and I was like, you know what? Let me rearrange my room. Okay. We're going to start sewing right off the edge. Stopping at the solid line and doing some back stitches. Okay, coming back over here. So since we've already trimmed both sides of that first triangle and then matched up that raw edge, we can just fold this over and give it a finger press. And then right next to me, I'm just going to give that a press with my iron. I think I really like this new layout though. It feels very productive. Set up for being very productive. Okay, so there are our first two fabrics and we're going to flip this over. And next we have the third position, which uses the C template. And for me, that is going to be this bright purple. So with this flipped over with the paper side up, see all this extra fabric right here? Let's go ahead and trim that. So I'm going to fold over on the sewing line. Flip this ruler over and the little lip of the ruler catches that paper fold and we can accurately trim that off. See that? Usually I just eyeball it because it's a lot faster for me. But that is how you would use the little lip on your add a quarter ruler. All right, so we can flip this back open. Here is our third fabric, and we're going to line it up like so. Again, I want this fabric to overlap that top edge by just a little bit, but be more heavy with the extra down here. And I'm going to go sew this and come right back. So there we are. Let's flip this over. I'm going to give it a quick little press right next to me. See all that extra fabric right there? Let's go ahead and trim that up. And we see we're also going to be using the C template for the fourth position. And this time I'm using my dark purple fabric. My dark purple. So let's flip this over. We're coming in right there, and we're gonna flip it over just like that. And I will go sew that seam right there. So we're gonna come back. We're gonna press that fabric. And we're going to flip it right over. Next, we're going to be using 5, the C template, and I'm using a bright purple fabric. So let me bring that in, and let's trim that extra that you see right beyond that sewing line. So that's going to be so pretty. I have tons of lights on, y'all, because since I moved my computer over this way, I have the windows behind me, which shines so bright during the day. So I have tons of light coming this way to balance it out. So my fabrics don't look exactly right on the screen, but in person, they're so pretty. I shared a picture of it over on my Facebook page. We have one more seam on this side, and then we have a few pieces to do over here. Okay, so this was the last piece for this side. So before I press it, just like all the previous circles, anytime a piece falls on the end, I like to glue stick it before I press it, because that really helps keep that fabric nice and snug in place against that foundation as we trim up these pieces, okay? So I just added a little bit of glue stick. The paper will still come off in the end. And I'm going to give that seam a press and just dry that glue right to the paper. So see that? I can turn this all a which way, and that fabric just stays snug against that paper. Did I say that right? All right, so we have some pieces to finish up over on this side. So we're going to come over here. The 6th position uses the D template, which for me is a teal piece of fabric. And so we've already trimmed the extra fabric. Remember, this was piece number 1. We trimmed both sides. And this piece is also at an angle like this. And it also stops right here. So just like when we did this one, I'm going to sew off the edge. And when I get to that line, I'm going to stop, do some back stitches, and cut the thread back here. Not right at this point, okay? So I'll go do that and we'll come right back. So it's laid out like this. We flip it right side down and your piece looks like this. And now we're gonna go sew that seam, and I'll be right back. There's that seam right there. I'm gonna fold that over. We're gonna have a nice little pretty point right there when we're done. We're gonna come back over here, and we have tons of extra fabric right there. Let's go ahead and trim that up. Seven uses the C template, and for me, it's going to be a bright purple fabric, which is fraying. That's all right, that's going to be cut off. We're going to line it up just like this, right side facing up, and then flip it right on over, like so. So we're going to be sewing on that line right there between 6 and 7. We'll bring this back, flip it over, finger press it, and then press it with the iron. You sort of get into a rhythm, especially if you're just doing it right. I was chain piecing my units, the ones I've already done, and that seemed to go really smoothly for me, and I was able to, I wouldn't say knock them out quickly because I had a lot of distractions, but it seems more efficient if you're chain piecing. So we're going to come back here, and I'm going to cut this little fray bit off because that's a little annoying. There we go. So you see we have tons of extra fabric that goes almost all the way under the section number 8. Let's go ahead and trim that up. Section number 8 uses the E fabric. Now this seam is a straight seam, and let me just draw, because I'm not sure that you see it in the camera. The angle this time is like this. So there's the straight angle, top curve. See that? That's how we're going to line up this piece right there. So it's easier for me to turn it this way. Straight part, angle, and flip it right on over and match up the raw edge. Now this is just a straight seam between 7 and 8, so I'll sew this one off camera, and we'll do that seam right there together. So there we go. Let's flip that over, press it. I really like the different combinations of purples with the teal and the yellow in this quilt. I think the yellow really just shines, kind of like sunlight. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so we're going to trim one more time. We're folding over between positions 8 and 9, right on that sewing line. And the 9th piece uses the F template. So let's bring that in. And this one goes the opposite way. So there's, whoops, there's the straight, there's the bottom curve, and here is your angle. So let me just lay that out for you. With the right side facing up, I want you to lay your fabric out like this. There's your slant, and there's your straight. Okay? Then we'll flip it right sides over just like that. Now let's come over and we'll sew this one because it's a little bit different than these two angles right there. We're sewing from off the edge to off the edge. She moved. Let me line these fabrics back up. Okay. From one paper edge off the other edge. Now this is the last fabric on this side. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue right on that paper. We're going to fold over that fabric, and we're going to press that seam and dry that glue. So there we go. It looks a little bit wonky, right? We still have to trim all the extra fabric off. And so I'm just going to let this cool off all the way and before we trim it. So in the meantime, we can do the second piece, which is much smaller. And let's go ahead and get started with that. Let me just clean this up just a little bit so I can focus. There we go. Now on this one, we're starting right here. Here's your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll finish up over here with number 6. So 1 uses the A template. This is my last A piece. We are going to put a little bit of glue stick right in that position. And we're going to smush that fabric in. I'm even going to dry it with my iron real quick. And now we can trim up both sides on these angles right there, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Here's the first trim. And the second. So we're going to come right here. Piece number 2 uses the B, which needs a little press. So we're coming right over here. I'm just going to draw this in. Here's your angle. There's the straight. There's the top curve, just like that. Angle, straight, top curve. If your piece doesn't look like that, you might want to check the way that you cut it out. You might have had your fabric with the right side facing up when you used your template to cut out your pieces. I've done that so many times. So we're going to go back and we're going to sew this seam. It's the same little seam where we stop right there and do a back stitch as we did on the bigger foundation, right? But I'll bring you along for this first one. So there we go. We're going to just fold that fabric over. I think by now, y'all probably didn't even need this video to sew together circle number 5. I think you probably have the hang of it at this point. But I just like hanging out with you. So we're going to flip that over and repeat the steps, right? We're folding on that line. The next thing I need to do is to remember to ask Harlan if he has any WD-40 for this chair, because it is on my last nerve. It is so squeaky. All right, we're right here with position number 3, the C template. And for me, I'm using the bright purple one, which is my last piece for the C. Let me cut this little frayed edge off because that's annoying. Let me tell you, you saw the little fray edge on this piece, the other one too. That's because I had to use all the way up to the very edge of this fabric to fit in all the pieces I needed of this. I had just enough. So I could not make any mistakes in my cutting with this particular fabric. And I had just enough. We're gonna line that up, and we're sewing on the line between 2 and 3. Okay, let's fold this over. Give that a press, and she's starting to migrate again behind my chair. Between 3 and 4, see that extra fabric that goes over position 4? Let's go ahead and trim that up. The poor baby got stung by a bee right in her paw pad. In between, like her paw pad, she's got humongous feet. She's got one paw pad that's big and like a couple paw pads like that, right? And you can actually stick your finger in between her paw pads. That's how big her feet are. In between, a bee stung her. Dink, right there. Poor baby. Now she is scared to death of bees. We're having a hard time getting her to go outside. We have to coax her with cheese and meat and treats. It takes forever to get her to go outside. So I'm hoping this is just a phase. But there's tons of bees out there right now. Not just little bumblebees. They're huge bumblebees. Not just like honeybees. These are great big bees. And she sees them. She does not want to go out there. I don't much blame her though, right? Number 4, we're using the G template. You can just see that line with the brightness of my light pad at like a medium, but I'm going to draw it for you so you can definitely see that angle, because it does make a difference, right? This piece is going to go on like that, the angle over here. But if you put that angle like that, this piece is not going to be big enough. When you fold it over, it's going to go like that, and part of your position won't be covered. So the angles do matter. There's your slant right there. Ask me how I know. I already, what was it? On that foundation, I made a boo-boo and I had to pick it out. So the angles and the way you put the fabric on, it really does make a difference. I'm going to go sew between 3 and 4, and we'll be right back. I do not want to run over her with my chair. But every time I look, she gets closer and closer up underneath there. All right, so let's press that fabric. We're going to come up here, and between 4 and 5, let's trim. You'll have to tear the paper just a little bit right there. And position number 5 uses the H fabric, which needs a little press first. And you can see already, right? There's your angle, and there's the straightaway. I'd be confusing my own self. I drew the lines back here. Here we go. I was confusing my own self. There's your straight line, there's your slant, and there's the bottom curve, right? There's our angle, straight side. And I'm gonna sew that line. This is from off the edge to off the edge, and I'll be right back. Okay, so there's that. That's the last fabric over on this side. So let's add a little bit of glue and then press. We have one more fabric for this foundation, and that's right here. Number 6 is using the D foundation. And that, your angle is right there. So I will go sew that, and from off the edge to off the edge. We'll come back, put a little glue in that space because that's our last fabric over on this side. And we're going to press. That is hot. So we're going to come back, and here's our 2 foundations. And before we move on, we need to square them up and trim them according to the very outside line. Now for me, it's easier to do the curved sections or the curved lines with scissors by hand. And then the straight sides, I'm going to use a ruler and my rotary cutter. So let me grab a ruler, let me grab my good scissors, and you can watch me as I trim these 2 foundations.
Come on in, grab a chair. We've got fabric and strings everywhere. Thread your needle, don't be shy. We'll make a quilt, you and I. It's a journey, it's an art. Every stitch comes from the heart. We'll do paper piecing, stitch so neat.
So there are 2 pieces. When you're done paper piecing for circle number 5, you'll have 4 of these sections and 4 of these sections. Now we're going to piece these 2 sections together. So let me just show you. They're going to come together like this. Let me fix the lighting on my camera. That's driving me nuts. Okay, that's a little better. The 2 pieces are going to come together like this. All right. This is actually the big part of the compass. The 4 points to the north, the south, the east, and the west, right? We have those 4 big long parts that extend all the way to the edge of the circle. This is the very outer edge of our circle. So this and this are halves of the tips of our compass, right? So we want one side over here and one side over here. And this piece is going to be added right there. So what we're going to do before we take off the papers from our foundations is we're going to flip these right sides together. And we're going to match this edge up. And we're going to sew right on the line right there. And I'll bring you along for that. There's a cat out there. Ashley Nuggets. The cat's so funny. He knows to come to the sliding door when he wants to come in. And he is worse than, like, I remember when I was a little kid and we stayed at my Nana's house during the day. She would watch us while my mom was at work in the summertime, right? And me and my cousins and my brother were there every day. And my Nana was like, y'all stop running in and out of this house. My cat runs in and out of this house. It would drive my Nana bonkers. He is in and out of this house. Like, let's see, today I've let him in 5 times already, and it's 2:30 in the afternoon. He will want to go out here shortly, and he'll want to come back in about 30 minutes later. Here's my piece. And here's the pressing board, right? I'm going to go ahead and remove the paper from this seam. And I learned my lesson from circle number 4, right? I'm going to be pressing these seams to the side. There's one little paper nugget. There we go. And remove the paper from that side. And let's open this up. And when we do, we're going to notice, because we have the triangle right here, right? This seam wants to naturally fall towards 5C. So I'm just going to let it. I'm not going to fight it and try to do anything different. And I'm going to press from this side first. And then I'm going to flip it over and press from this side. Now you're going to connect all your little pieces to your big pieces. There you go. And you're going to end up with 4 sections that look just like this. Now let me go grab my other 3 that I sewed together yesterday, and let's meet back. All right, here's all of my sections for circle number 5. And I'm thinking it may or may not all fit in the view of the camera. But the way they're going to come together is like this, and they do not fit all in the camera. But isn't that going to be so pretty, right? So just like circle number 4, we need to join these together in pairs. So we're going to flip this over, and we're going to match that seam right there. I'll scoot this up. This is the bottom half of circle 5. We're going to flip this over. And so that seam right there. And yeah, I'll bring you along for that. We'll come on over to the sewing machine.
Mystery quilt all through the night. Hot pads, wall quilt, big or small. Don't you know we love them all? So take my hand, let's make it right. Come sew with Lisa through the night. It's a puzzle piece by piece. Let's sew up those flying geese. Every stitch a memory.
Let's come back over here. We're going to go ahead and remove the nuggets of paper in those seams. I just have to tell you while I'm doing this, we got the first bits of asparagus out of our garden the other day, and it was delicious. Asparagus is one of my all-time favorites. We started it, was it last year? We started it from roots that evidently were like 4 years old. So last year, that whole great big box with the asparagus was like one humongous, by the end of the summer, it was just so overgrown with asparagus and little seeds dropping, right? We did not pick no asparagus last year, even though we used roots that were like 4 years old. We just let it go. But this year, we're being real selective and only picking the really thick ones. But we were able to have asparagus, what was the night before last? It was so good. All right, we're going to open this up, and we have points coming together. I have to get used to this camera being over here. We have points coming together right there. That's going to be a little bit on the thicker side, but I do not want to open up this seam. What happens is this piece grows by ever so slightly, which creates folds and fullness in all of this section here, right? So I'm going to deal with the thickness in this seam right here. And which way does it really want to go? my other seams are going this way, I'm going to press it in the same direction my other seams are going. I just like to get it sort of started with my finger, and then we'll press it. I'm going to flip it right on over and press it from this side too. So now we have two halves that we're going to put together like this. You don't even see it down here. You can see me up here holding it, right? We're going to flip the right sides together, and we're going to sew this end and this end.
Quilts of love for you and me. We'll do paper, piece, and stitch so neat. Stitching on fabric, oh so sweet. We'll raise those seams, no pins in sight. Sewing zooms all through the night. Hot pads, trivets, big or small. Is there time to make them all? So take my hand and use and sight. Quilt with Lisa all through the night. Every stitch tells a tale. Use that glue stick friend without a fail.
We're going to open this back up, and again, I'm just going to press these two seams in the same direction all the previous seams are going in.
Needles that shine, show me your threads and I'll show you mine. We'll do paper, piece, and stitch so neat. Machine embroidery, oh so sweet. Glue base those seams.
All right, here's our big circle number 5. See how big that is? So at this point, I have a bunch of little papers to pick off the end. I'm going to put on some relaxing music, probably take Dolly or try to get Dolly to go outside. Check the cat, see if he wants to go outside. And when we come back, we're going to be ready to fold over the edge of circle number 5. Okay, I have all the papers removed from the back of my piece. I'm ready to create the template that we're going to use to turn the raw edges over. So here is my page. I've printed it on freezer paper. Now before I fuse and create my 3 layers, because I'm using a roll of freezer paper to create my 3 layers, right? This is just printed first. I'm going to go ahead and just cut this apart. I'm going to roughly cut around it like so. Okay. Like so. See that? It's not right on the line. It's not perfect. I'm just reducing some of this extra paper all the way around. On one of the pieces, you're going to see a little tiny glue tab. I'm going to add some glue right there. I even extended it and gave myself a little bit of extra room right here so I can really have a nice size little tab to add a good generous amount of glue right there, because we're going to join it. The next piece has a little dotted line on the left side. We're going to line that up. I'm going to cut it out right on that dotted line. See that? Right on the dotted line. And I'm going to match it up just like this. Just make sure those two pieces are bonded really well. I'm going to let that set up and dry for a minute, right? As I go grab some other freezer paper off a roll in 2 sections that are big enough to fuse to this piece to create my 3 layers. And then I'm going to cut this out directly on the line. And we will meet back at the pressing board when I'm ready to start turning some edges and I have this piece made. Okay, I have my template all cut out and I wanted to meet with you before I start turning the edge over. When I cut this out, the printed line is a little thick. Whoops, it's a little thick on the bottom and the top. So I just want you to see how this is cut out. This top edge right here, I had to cut that right on the bottom of that thick line so that my point, I'll get used to this camera eventually, so that the point is just at the top of this template when it's cut out. Reason being is when we line this up, see, here's our two triangles, triangle, 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 triangle. When we line it up to the bottom edge of the inside of this circle, this template should fall right at the very point where those two seams meet. Okay, that way when we fold this over, we don't lose our points of our triangles on the other side. That point should just come to the edge of this circle. Okay, so I'm going to bring you along and turn over the edge of this whole entire circle, but we'll fast forward this part because I imagine I'm going to take my time. It's going to take a little minute. Okay. You also want to be really careful that you are not pulling and distorting the shape of this. It's got some good size to it and it's awful stretchy. Okay, so just be mindful of that.
Finish those quilts with all our might. T-shirt quilts, big or small. I think there's time to make them all. So take my hand, let's make it right. So and Lisa all through the night. Take my hand, no rules in sight. Grab some snacks, we'll sew through the night.
Beneath the stars the quilt is laid, every stitch a story, every seam displayed. Guiding dreams like a compass true, whispers of the ocean call me to you. Sleep in peace, my weary heart. Sail away on this gentle breeze, wrapped in comfort beneath the trees. A compass quilt, oh how it gleams, navigating softly through our dreams. The mariners.
Where these points come together, these are the compass points, right? We have some real thickness up in the seam allowance that we're trying to turn over the edge of, right? I think on this one, right down here, I'm going to snip. Like if you open up this seam, if you open it up right in the middle, there's two pieces of fabric on this side. There's two pieces of fabric on this side. I'm going to snip so that this will open up, right? And I'm just going, this part of the seam will still go over to the side, but up here it lays open now. I'm going to just finger press that part right there so that when I'm turning the edge, this will lay a little bit flatter. So I'll have two seams like that and two where I have thickness in that seam, but I think that will flip over the edge a little bit easier.
The way through tempests drawn through night and day. Each patch of memory, both old and new, holding close the dreams that carry me through. Close your eyes and feel the sway. Sail away on this gentle breeze, wrapped in comfort beneath the trees. A compass quilt, oh how it gleams, navigating softly through our dreams. So when the stars begin to fade, trust the quilt, the love we made.
Come on in, grab a chair. We've got fabric everywhere. Thread your needle, don't be shy. We'll make a quilt, you and I. It's a journey, it's an art. Every stitch comes from the heart. So pick your colors, lay them out. Let me show you what it's all about. We'll do paper piecing, stitch so neat, painting on fabric, oh so sweet. Blue base, those seams, no pins in sight. Mystery quilts done just right. Hot pads, wall quilts, big or small. There's time to make them all. So take my hand, let's make it right. Come sew with Lisa through the night, cutting squares and diamond rolls, pressing all those seams as we go. Try foundation paper tricks, make it sharp, make it quick. It's a puzzle piece by piece.
Okay, Dolly's over here barking at all the neighbors. Hopefully she's quiet so we can get this part done. Here is my circle 5. All the edges are turned over. It's nice and dry and pressed. And we're ready. There she goes. We're ready to bring in this section and line it up with this. All right, so you'll see I went ahead and put the tips of the compass up here, 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 and here. And we can bring this in, and we're going to be lining these seams to those seams right there, and straight down, and you can't see the very bottom edge. And this is going to take a minute, okay? This piece should overlap by about 1/4 of an inch all the way around once we get it lined up. And I'm going to start with the main seams right here, right? So we'll get those lined up. We'll see that this is lined up. And it's lined up down here. Now what we're also looking for is that the corners of these triangles that come in to circle 4 are meeting right here all the way around. So this is going to take some finagling. I'm going to go ahead and just work with it. And then once I get it where I want it, I'm going to try not to move it. Just like the other circles, I'm going to turn up little bits at a time, add some glue dots, hold it in place for a second, and just rotate all the way around. Just keeping an eye that things are lined up, right? It's got some size to it, so it's a little bit awkward, but you can absolutely do this.
Let's sew up those flying geese, every stitch a memory, a quilt of love for you and me. We'll do paper piece and stitch so neat, stitching on fabric oh so sweet. Blue base those seams, no pins in sight, sewing zooms all through the night. Hot pads, trivets, big or small, is there really time to sew them all? So take my hand, no rules in sight, quilt with Lisa all through the night. Every stitch tells a tale, use that glue stick, my friend, without a fail. Thread and fabric, needles that shine, show me your threads and I'll show you mine. We'll do paper piecing, stitch so neat, machine embroidery, oh so sweet. Blue base those seams, no pins in sight. Mystery quilts sewn throughout the night, t-shirt quilts, big or small. There's enough time to make them all. So take my hand, let's make it right. Sail with Lisa through the night. Take my hand, no rules in sight. Hang out with me, we'll sew through the night.
Now that we have our complete compass done, we're ready to go ahead and put it onto our background. You can do this one of two ways. You can go ahead and sew it to your background at this point, but when I made my first quilt, I thought it stayed much more square if I go ahead and add my borders first. So I'm going to add my borders to my background square first and then add my compass. You could add it at this point here. So what I've done is I folded a piece of fabric twice and then I cut it to the size that's in the pattern in the instructions, right? And when I folded it in half twice, I gave it a press. So now I have center marks on my background. See that? They're going horizontally and vertically, a center mark. That's going to help us line up our compass once we're done, right? At this point or after you put the borders. I'm going to go ahead and sew my borders on. I'm going to sew my borders on the left and right first, or the top and bottom first. It doesn't matter. It's both the same. And press those seams towards the border. And then I'm going to add my top and bottom borders and then press those seams towards the borders. And we're going to come back once I have my borders on, and we're going to line up the compass right in the middle of this background. It has been a lot of work to get here, but we are almost at the finish line with this quilt. So here's my background with my borders added. I went ahead and added some heat erasing pen just to darken up the centers on all four sides, right? Just help me see that a little bit better. And now we're going to position our compass right in the center by just lining up these four seams with the middle marks on all four sides. And when we do that, it should center the compass right in the background. So I'm just going to adjust this until I get it just right. So I'm lined up there and there, there, and almost at the bottom. It could be my piecing's a little bit wonky. Oh, nope, there we go. It's perfectly lined up. So once we have it, we're going to try not to move it. And just like all the previous circles, I'm going to take my glue. You could pin this, right? Be careful not to move anything around. You could pin it, but I'm going to go ahead and do my glue basting, and right along the edge, not that much glue, Lisa, just little dots. Get carried away. Right along the edge. You know what? I'm going to do just a couple right there just to anchor it to that background. And now I'm just pressing all the way around, getting that glue to grab both the compass and the background. And I'm just going to work in sections. None of this glue is dry, so it will lift up and shift and move at this point, so just be careful. Just add a couple of dots right there. And I'm just going to double check this one more time before I dry it with my iron, right? But if we make a boo-boo, as long as we haven't sewn it down, it's really easy to fix. So what have you thought about this turned edge with the different circles instead of putting together the compass with the curved piecing? What are your thoughts about it? It's okay, you can tell me. I think this quilt is stunning. I wish you could see it in person. Well, there goes my phone. Sorry about that. I'm going to start getting notifications. It's just that time of the day. I'm going to try to scoot this up, and we're going to do this very bottom. kind of forgot what I was saying. Just a couple of little dots right there just to anchor it. And then I'm going to move this over and I'm going to press and dry all this glue. Remember, we're not bringing any wet glue over to the sewing machine. See how nice and flat that's laying? I love that. Let's bring it over and just press it dry. Okay, let's go ahead and just dry this. And I'm going to turn on my steam just a little bit. I feel like my iron gets a lot more hot with that steam. It just dries and sets that glue even faster. I'm just pressing all the way around, and then I have to move this because my pressing board is smaller right here. All right, I'm going to use that same blanket stitch that I used right there, right on the edge of this quilt. And that laid nice and flat, so I'm not going to add any kind of stabilizer to the back side. And let's go stitch this compass down. So here we are. Isn't that just so pretty? I absolutely love it. Now here comes the sad news. I do not have time to quilt this week, but I have time to stream this video live. So I'll finish the recording now and I will be live. And if you have questions, we can talk about my ideas for quilting my quilts. And there's a million things you could do, and there's no right or wrong. I just don't have time to do it this week. I have so much more stuff to do and to finish up. But I didn't want to stop you from finishing the top and then having fun with the quilting in your own time, right? So isn't that so pretty? Let's go ahead and finish up the recorded part of this video and let's talk about some quilting. Okay, everybody, so there you go. The lighting has changed in here since I started. I look a little green. I'm not sick. So what did you think? I know that was a little bit of a longer video, but I really feel like we could go ahead and wrap up making the top today, right? So I have both of my quilts here. The one that I've sewn with you throughout this series, and then the very first one that I did, this one, which actually looks really handsome in this lighting. And so both of these tops, or both of these quilts, were made differently. All through this series, I have sewn down my circles and all of my applique without creating the layers of my quilt, right? So everything is sewn down, and when I create the layers of this quilt, the batting and the backing, all I have left to do is quilting, and there's so many different variations. Like, oh, sorry about that. Let me pull you down to my desk. I think that'll work nicely. Let's change the light there. Everything changed since I started filming. I guess it was an hour or so ago. Give me a second. Let me see if I can fix this so you can see a little bit better. The awesome things about Alive. There, that's better. Okay, so again, all of this is sewn down, right? So when I go to quilt this, I don't have to worry about quilting along the circle to stitch it down. It's already stitched down. I don't have to worry about quilting along these circles because they're already stitched down. So I am much more free with the designs that I want to do in my quilting. I could do a simple stitch in the ditch along the compass, along this circle and maybe this circle, right? But I don't have to worry so much about staying right on the edge with all of my quilting because it's all stitched. Now, when I did this one right here, I did it differently. I glued everything in place. I made my entire circle and nothing was stitched down. It was all glued, but nothing was stitched. And I glued it to my background and then layered my quilt. And when I did that, that meant that I had to stitch down all of the edges of my circles and all of my applique. Which is easy for me because I put on a free motion foot, although I was so out of practice with it, right? My circles aren't completely straight if you were to look up close to it. Yeah, I was just so out of practice and I really was not happy with what I was doing. Do you know what I'm saying? And then I used an embroidery thread, which I should have never done because I thought that it would look really cool on there. But once I started doing it, I didn't like it. But did I stop? No, I kept going. And so once all my circles were sewn down, I was quilting my quilt at the same time, which is awesome. But I did not like the thread. So instead of picking it all out, I came back in with a satin stitch, which really kind of defeated the whole purpose of turning the edges, right? So I feel like you have so many options with a quilt like this, right? I've even played around with digitizing my embroidery machine to do some quilting. So you see this right here. I digitized that and hooped this quilt, and my embroidery machine did some quilting over it. So I'm kind of using this quilt as a tool to learn how to do that at this point. But I think for this one, I will have many more options because I don't have to worry about accurately stitching down all of these circles. They're stitched down. So if I wanted to just echo around the circles or echo straight line quilting inside this shape here all the way around, I think that would be brilliant, right? I could do some like little loop-de-loop quilting in this area here. I think that would be fantastic. Or I could do circles and kind of mimic this, but in the quilting, and just add another like interest element to this quilt, right? So many different things. I do think I want to do something really fantastic and pretty in this negative space in the four corners. I think that would be pretty. But yeah, so this is where I'm at. And unfortunately, I probably won't have time to really give this quilt the attention that it deserves for another week or so. Maybe like 2 weeks. So I didn't want to hold you up that long, and I wanted you to get at least this far, right? And again, the quilting, we're all on different levels. There's just so many things that you can do. But yeah, isn't that so pretty? What color kind of thread for the top stitch? I used a gray Madeira thread, and it just kind of disappears right from this far. Like my camera is right here from my desk, maybe 2 foot off my desk. From this far, you can't really even see that thread that's stitched down all of that, right? Up close I can see it, and in person I can see it, but if you step away from it, it just kind of disappears. This was sort of a medium tone gray thread. All right, everybody, I feel like we've been here a good hot minute. Again, if you're watching on the replay, it's awesome because you can fast forward through the parts that you're confident and you want to get past that part. If you've been here during the live and you've hung out with me all this time, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This was a lot of fun. All of the videos are grouped together. So if you're just catching this and you're like, whoa, what is this quilt? I've missed it. All of the videos are in a playlist, and the link for the playlist is saved down in the description box, and you can start at the very beginning. Did I use a zigzag stitch? I used a blanket stitch to stitch down all of my circles, and I did use a really small zigzag stitch to sew down my circles, and those are just raw edge applique. All right, y'all. Now, if you can hang out with me tomorrow and see, and I just want to show y'all this. I used a lot of glue dots in this quilt. See how flexible this whole thing is? And this is a couple layers of fabric too, right? See how flexible this is? So yeah, it's okay to use the glue on the quilt. It's perfectly fine. Now, if you're making the tiny blocks, tomorrow we are starting applique versions of the tiny blocks, and I'm super excited. I have even digitized the ladybug block that I'm going to stitch out tonight in the quilt retreat. Just to have fun with it, right? But we'll be making it tomorrow. I believe I've already put the link up on my channel, so you can check that out, and the pattern's free through the weekend. Whoops. I hit the wrong button. It's free through the weekend, and guess what? I've included the SVGs for free through the weekend. So if you have a cutting machine like a Scan-A-Cut right there, or a Cricut, you can grab those and cut out your applique with your cutting machine, and it should be a lot of fun. Okay, everybody, have a fantastic rest of your week if I don't see you tomorrow. And I hope you have fun with this quilt. Is it traditionally pieced the way we would traditionally do a mariner's compass? No, it is not. But is it perfect? Yes, it is. And it's so much fun. Okay, everybody, I encourage you to think outside the box with all your projects, and I'll see you soon. Bye.